Welcome to Liz and Liz Get Literary. My name is Liz.
And my name is Liz. Welcome back.
Welcome back. We have a very special episode today. We have a very special guest. She goes by CW Farnsworth, and she writes amazing sports romance, YA, so you get a very special episode this week. Before we bring her on, we wanted to tell you guys what we were currently reading.
So I'm late, but I am reading Sunrise on the Reaping,
Mm-hmm.
and so are you,
Yep.
by Suzanne Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And additionally, because I was on a book buying ban, I'm still late to the Rose Hill series. So I am currently reading Wild Eyes, which is book 2. Elsie Silver, the woman that you are. We're having a great time.
We are very late on that bandwagon, for sure.
Yeah, we're back. We're back and better than ever, buying more books than ever before. So honestly, I kind of think the book buying ban backfired.
I mean, did I have 6 books waiting for me April 1st? Yes. Like my husband was like, "Is this an April Fool's joke?"
What are you reading?
Sunrise on the Reaping. And also I am starting my reread of Kingdom of Claw by Demi Winters. We are doing that for our romance book club. And hard take, love Kingdom of Claw even more than I loved Road of Bones.
I do too.
But we're in the
We're
thick
deep
of it.
in the lore.
What's the little Einstein? Into the thick of it.
Oh.
Oh, that's how it is too. Like she's like, I'm gonna go do things. Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah. Love Kingdom of Claw.
We also both just finished Reckoning.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys. That's its own episode, I think.
As you know, we love Jillian Eliza West.
We do. Yeah, we're in April now, and I can't believe we're in April, first of all. But one of the books that I was super shocked to enjoy was one of the books we're going to be talking about today, Kiss Now, Lie Later by C.W. Farnsworth. If you haven't seen it, it is in your local bookstore. It is a gorgeous pink book. It's got amazing sprayed edges.
And soccer plays on the edges.
Yes,
So good.
it is a soccer football romance. And it is YA. And you guys have heard all of my tangents about YA and how I feel about it. And I actually really did enjoy this book.
She was frothing at the mouth.
She does such a good job. I say this in our interview, I think, but the pacing is amazing. Everything is just so very, very well done. And so if you need a good romance YA, pick it up because it is absolutely worth your time.
And then the sequel, which we will not be spoiling who from book 1 the sequel is about, is new adult. And she does not hold back on the spice. And I had an incredible time.
Yes.
An incredible time. I would recommend Charlotte's work to anyone.
Yes, she's
Truly.
an auto buy for us from now on, and we are so excited to have her on today. So buckle in, put your cleats on, get your shin guards strapped, and let's go.
Turn on the She's the Man soundtrack.
Stick a tampon in your nose and let's go.
Perfect. My favorite Scuda.
All right, guys, here we go. Guys, it's Liz.
And Liz.
And we are here with a very special guest, CW Farnsworth.
Hello,
Hi,
thanks for having
welcome.
me. Thank you.
And how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
And you go by Charlotte?
Yeah, Charlotte's perfect.
Okay,
Thank you for
perfect.
asking. Rolls off the tongue a little easier than the initials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
The initials are really cute though. Is there a story
Thank
behind
you.
that or just a pen name?
No, it's just like my first name and last name was long enough as like come together that it just made sense to go by the initials. So I like call my stuff CWF. I do like the 3 initials when I'm feeling super lazy. My like author signature started writing out the full last name, and then we've devolved to just the three letters.
I think about that often with authors that we have a book signed by, and I'm like imagining them signing 600-700 copies of Charlotte Farnsworth would give me arthritis. So
It would
Yeah.
send me over the edge.
We
for
dropped
sure.
it would drop that fast.
I mean, I feel like we would get that. Like Elizabeth is a lot, and if we had to sign, like for whatever reason, even more
Mhm.
than 5 things, I feel like I would not be well.
no, truly.
I have to tell you a couple of things.
Yes. Okay, I'm ready.
One, Kiss Now, Lie Later caught me completely off guard because I'm gonna give you a couple reasons. One,
Okay.
I was a soccer player.
Mhm.
I was a sweeper, and so I've read some soccer romances where I was like, clearly you did not play, like not a fan. I also am not the biggest YA person, and so I was like, I'm a little nervous. I loved it. I was texting her. I was like, oh
Yeah. There were multiple FaceTime calls because we read it at the same time. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, we love romance. We love sports. YA is not always our thing. And so I was like, we are going to be great. It's going to be so cute. And then we just immediately were FaceTiming, like, are we obsessed with
my God. Well,
this?
and like we shouldn't have
Well, it's a
doubted,
high
but it's
compliment.
just I was firmly like, what your new adult is probably what I'm going to be like even more obsessed with, which I am. Like, do not get me wrong, but I have to tell you. And then I saw it in store, and it is so cute, and I was like, it
Yeah.
deserves it. Like, I'm so proud of you, little friend.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Congratulations. Because, first of all,
Yes.
the edges,
I
so
know, it's
cute.
gorgeous.
So we record at our local bookstore. We're like partners with them. And
Okay.
I came in today and I said, hey, just checking. You still have some copies, right? Of Kiss Now Lie Later because we want to put it on our little table. And she said, we sold out. And I said,
And that was partially our fault because we did tell everyone. We were like, you
We
guys.
promoted it too well.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's
So
always
I just
lovely
had
to
to tell
hear.
you that because so
Thank you.
obviously a couple of your books, or well, you have knowledge of soccer. So what made you want to bring that into a romance?
Yeah, so I played myself when I was younger. I never got super competitive with it. I think what drew me to writing it was that there's not a lot of soccer representation in sports romance. It skews very, very heavily toward, I think, football and hockey are sort of
Mhm.
unanimously the two most popular sports. And so I really wanted to feel like I did something different and took the genre and sort of I sports romance was a genre I was drawn to as a former athlete. And just there's so many fun ways you can play around with sports and those different dynamics in writing. And so I wanted to explore that as well. But I think it was just, it felt very fresh and different to me writing a soccer romance. And I knew that there would be in Kiss Now Lie Later, I wanted if we can just dive right in, I guess. I'm like kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but the basic premise of the story is that there's this rivalry between two small towns, and I knew that that would be the basis of sort of the enemies to lovers dynamic between Maeve and Wes. But I also wanted them each to have this sort of different grounding in the rivalry that went beyond just that. Like, if you think about it in the abstract, hating someone just because they root for a different sports team than you is kind of ridiculous. But you do, you see these real representations. I'm a New York native, like the Boston Red Sox and the Yankees is like,
Mhm.
everyone knows that those two teams have a rivalry. And so there are these sort of, it did feel like just a really fun basis for the enemies to lovers tropes where they're already set up that they're going to dislike each other just on this one basic prep. And then with Maeve's character, I also wanted her to have these different attachments. Like I wanted her to be an athlete too and be, playing for a team and feel that sort of loyalty to her town as an athlete herself. And then also there are the other dynamics of her father and her brother involved in the football team specifically. So she's got this sort of family loyalty or affiliation as well. And so it just all kind of, as I was developing the book and deciding what tropes and storylines to include, it just felt very natural for me for her to be an athlete. And I liked soccer as the same season as football. And so that it all just kind of flowed and worked well together. Um, and I have another book, First Light Final Fall, which is coming out at the end of April, is re-releasing, and that they're both soccer players in that one. And I really liked that soccer is a sport where men and women are sort of getting on equal footing with. I think it's probably the most progressive basketball is getting there with, Caitlin Clark and all of that. Dynamic is catching up, but I think soccer was one of the few, you look at like the women's soccer team, Alex Morgan, there were like several players who sort of became household names, and that's very rare for female athletes. And so I felt again like soccer was just a sport that there was a lot to explore and a lot that I could do with that I hadn't seen in other romance books. So
I just have to say thank you because it was really enjoyable to read a book where I've read obviously quite a few sports romance, but I knew exactly what was going on, and like I just felt like I could really put myself in the book because I had literally been on a field before, and it was nice to have like that feeling in. I read First Fight Final Fall and I ate it up because of all the things, but I just have to say thank you.
oh
Thank
well,
you so
thank you
much.
for reading. That's such a compliment.
Yeah, I didn't even play soccer, and I truly was like, I felt like it was like watching a movie, and I don't have that. I forget the technical term, that thing where you can like see the words, like play out like a movie while you're reading. I do not have that. I was not blessed with that. But when I was reading Kiss Now Lie Later, it was like I was watching the perfect rom-com on screen the whole time. I could picture every character, every place, the little cabin. It was great. It was so good. And the chemistry that Wes and Maeve had is insane. I felt it like palpably. So, can you tell us about how you build chemistry between characters? Are you basing it off of something like personal, which, if you are, congratulations? Or are you just like insane in the chemistry department?
Well, first off, you guys are lovely for my ego. I need you to we need to have another conversation right before I release a book, and I'm in that panic stages of everything.
Anytime.
Just
You're
shoot us
really
a
hyping
text.
me up. Yeah, I think every book and every couple are different in some unique way. And so I felt like with Maeve and Wes, there was this clear, again, from the start why they hate each other and that they hate each other. And so so the book starts with they have a brief meeting the freshman year. And so I really wanted to have that conversation early on where they have this meeting and sort of, it's just concept of it's hard to hate up close. Like it's hard to hate someone that you actually know and sympathize and empathize with. And so, yes, the abstract idea of this rival quarterback who's beat her brother and, is hated by everyone she knows and is sort of this villainous abstract figure is easy to kind of stay with the herd and the peer pressure and hate on him with everyone else. But I wanted there to be this sort of back of the mind moment. And for Wes too, like having, meeting each other face to face right from the start and sort of knowing that they're both aware of these misconceptions about each other. And they also share some secrets that are not common knowledge. And so they sort of have that basis from the start of knowing there's more to this person than just what is being talked about in, my town or in my high school. And so then you jump ahead to the senior year and they meet again. And at that point, they're both much more entrenched in the rivalry in different ways and more familiar with it. And so I knew that would be a very fun premise to dig into and to play around with. There's like a little bit of a forbidden secret relationship aspect of it too, where they know if anyone else knew about their relationship that, shit would hit the fan and blow up. And so I felt like there was just the natural chemistry there from the start of there's this dynamic of knowing that they should dislike or hate each other based on where they live and what their roles are in their respective towns. And then knowing that they would both kind of have to battle that loyalty versus, their developing feelings for each other. I just, there was a lot to play around with from the start and just sort of develop as the plot progressed and as the book went along. So I felt like there was more to work with from the start than with sometimes couples you have to develop and sort of dig a little bit more to figure out what their dynamic or their chemistry is. And with Maeve and Wes, it was just it was sort of set up from the start, and so I could just go from there on kind of throwing different interactions at them. And then, obviously their relationship does eventually come out and that, there was a lot to play around with there of different scenes where they're, having to choose each other or choose their town or their friends. And so I knew that there was sort of a lot of opportunities for them to show up for each other and show their chemistry in that way as the book progressed. So
You did a really great job.
Truly. I just kept being like, Alexa, play Dress by Taylor Swift.
Oh, mine was so high school.
Oh, well, perfect, obviously.
But you are a Swiftie. I know this, correct?
I am, yes.
So what's your album for this book?
For this book, I'm going to say I do think So High School is an excellent choice. I think this book was more 1989 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. My personal favorite album, and it just feels summery and light and
It does.
sort of high schooly as well. And so I think as an album, it best encapsulates the book.
Perfect.
Mine is like iconic.
Yeah, I love it.
So when it comes to your writing, are you a chaos demon where you just kind of start writing and build from there, like you have a dream and you're like, let's go? Or are you an organized planning demon and you have outlines and you try and follow? And what's your process look like?
It's different for every book, so it's a little difficult of a question to answer. I think I've become more of a plotter than a pantser as I've written more and as my writing has advanced and progressed, but I still do improvise a lot when I'm writing. So I try to sit down with a pretty firm idea. I'll know the characters, I'll know the beginning of the book, I'll usually know how it ends, and then there'll be usually like 5 or 6 sort of formative scenes in the story that are very clear in my mind, and I know are going to be sort of a big basis for the plot or advance the plot in different ways. And so I'll know that, and I'll sit down and I'll write as much as comes to me in like a massive stretch. So I'll sit down and like put down 50, 60,000 words of the book in like a week and a half. And that's just like kind of word vomit, like just getting words on the page, getting out what comes easily and feels natural, and not putting a ton of pressure on word choice or pacing or any of those sort of more craft details. And then I'll usually go back to the start and sort of start fine tuning some of those details and adding dialogue and filling in some of the gaps or the different details that I left behind. And that point is when I'll usually start to make a list like, oh, I need to add this in chapter 2 or this in chapter 5. And I'll sort of start to take more notes and details. But from at the very beginning, most of it lives in my head. And so it's really getting the story out. And I try to wait until I don't usually work on a book until I have that pretty strong sense of the story and the vibe, for lack of a better word, for the book. Like I'll just have a sense of what it is and what it'll become. And so I try to make sure that's as fully formed in my head as possible before I start writing, because I found when I start working on like a half-baked idea, that's when I get frustrated or start to feel writer's block. And it's just harder for me to get really moving on a story unless I have it straight in my mind. And so I'll try to avoid actually putting anything down about it until like I feel like I've got the flow of the story. And then that's when I'll sit down and really start working on it. So it's a fairly chaotic method. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but it's just, you got to figure out what works.
Organized.
And what gets the book finished across the finish line is sometimes all it takes. So yeah, that's the process in a nutshell.
It does feel like an organized chaos.
I mean, that's why we work. I feel like she just described how our dynamic works.
Yes.
I'm like, and you're like, okay, well,
I
hear you.
And organize this little, yeah.
But that's like part of what they teach you. Like that's what they taught me in my AP English is like you do like your web diagram, your bullet points, like all these things, and then you go from there. And I feel like you can tell that like you're really passionate about it, and so that makes so much sense, like how you described
I feel like with that too, it's easy to sort of get entrenched in the little details if you're mapping it out that thoroughly, and I feel like that can like then it can feel a little bit too precise if you're like going chapter by chapter and you're like, okay, these 3 things are going to happen. Like it can feel a little too formulaic in some senses. And I think with fiction, you're really looking to like draw someone in, have them totally lost and absorbed in your world. And I think the best way to do that is to sort of feel like life doesn't have those neat chapters and like perfect boxes, and so sometimes you can almost emulate that in your writing style and not just the story itself. And so I feel like it's more authentic when I'm trying to come up with a story or fill in those details if it is truly a chaotic process on my end to some degree. So
yeah, and that makes a lot of sense too because it feels very passionate. Like we can feel all these emotions not only from Maven West, but the supporting characters as well. Like it's very easy to connect. I found myself empathizing with even like Wes's teammates and like her kind of shitty dad. I was like,
her dad triggered me so hard. I can't talk about it. And I was like,
yeah, and it was really cool too because like I found myself, like I said, empathizing with these people who, if they were like my friend's dad or my husband's dad, like I would beat you up. But I could like it was written so well and in such a way that I could like actually kind of see where everything was stemming from. So is that something that's like really important to you, or does that just kind of fall in line with Maven West or all your couplings and how they kind of like got where they are?
yeah, it's funny you say that. I did a young adult author panel last night at a romance bookstore in Boston, and we talked a lot. All the other authors were had also written young adult books, and so we talked about parents and their roles in young adult books a fair amount. And it was not something that I really thought about consciously at the time. I knew that there would be these different dynamics between Maeve and her father and Wes and his father, and both of those sort of advanced Maeve and Wes's characters in different ways, and I didn't want the parents to overshadow the kids, if that makes sense. So neither of them appear on page very much. It's more you're reading Maeve and Wes's impressions of their parents and what they're telling each other about their parents. And again, I felt like Maeve's family's connection to the team was important because it gave some more layers and complexity to her character for why she's so conflicted in her loyalty for Glenmont, and why her falling for the Allegheny quarterback is a betrayal of her family, not just her town, so to speak. Like, that just added more tension and angst to the story overall. And so I knew that her dad would have this role in the team and that Liam would have the role in the team. And I felt like also that it was important for like that very first scene where they both kind of share their secrets. I just felt like family dynamics and trouble is a lot of often kept under the surface, especially at that time in your life. You're not, you're trying to project often a perfect image of your life, and what people know about your family life is often something you can control. There are other variables that you can't, but it felt very, I guess, realistic for me for some of Maeve's family troubles or Wes's family's troubles to not be public knowledge. And so that was something that made a lot of sense for them to share with each other and then sort of form that unique connection early on. And so, yeah, I wanted to play around with different backstories for both of them, I guess. And it ended up, if no one has an idyllic home life, but I wanted to make it clear that neither of them did, specifically in the book. And it just added some sort of different emotional complexities to the story overall, I felt like.
Yeah, it
And
definitely did. And then it continued in book two, too, which I love to see, like how everyone was doing and like maturing. And if I may be so bold, Maeve did not take college as well as I thought she was going to. And I was like crushed, but I'm like,
yeah,
that's so real because that's exactly what would happen when this like high school star who had like, a lot of troubles, but then was like blossoming, has this like fear and like in like anxious attachment style. That's exactly what would happen, and it was just done so well. So I can definitely see what you're saying.
thank you. Yeah, Maeve and Wes college book is a top 5 most asked question I get, and I did consider it. I thought about that before writing For Now Not Forever, which is Liam's book, and I didn't. There were things I could have explored, but there was nothing that felt exactly right. And yeah, you can't write a whole book that's just happily ever after. They're both thriving and everything's wonderful. And so it felt like it advanced the overall story of not just Maeve and Wes, but the rivalry in the town to then switch to Liam and Natalie and sort of give them redemption arcs. And then you do get some glimpses and teases of Maeve and Wes in that book as well. So that was sort of an opportunity for me to give updates on them without having to get into all the different gory details and
Exactly.
sort of break down what exactly their struggles were in college. So yeah, I did play around with the idea, but
So speaking of Liam and Natalie, you switched from YA to new adult and new romance. How was that process like when you're writing? How does your mind how do you switch your mind to go from YA to the new adult?
Yeah, I think for me, I'll have a general idea for the plot, or I'll have characters that come to me, and then I'll sort of decide what age range fits that best. And so I started out my debut. The first book I ever read is 4 Months, 3 Words, and that's a college romance. And so I wrote that book first, and then I came up with the idea for Kiss an Ally later, which was my second book. And the story just only worked in high school, and so it worked much better in high school. I can't say it wouldn't work in college, but I was originally thinking I would write another college romance. I just graduated college myself at the time, and so that just felt like a very I felt like I could easily get into the headspace of characters those age, and that just felt most natural to me at the time. But I felt like with the idea of the two warring towns and the rivalry, that fit better for me. Like, I wouldn't have been able to have her dad be the football coach and her brother, all the different dynamics I was trying to play around with worked much better. She was still living at home and in high school. And so that was why I made the switch to YA for that book. And since then, I've written several other high school romance books. I just think it's such a fun time to play around with. I know you guys said YA is not when you genre you always gravitate toward, but I sometimes feel the same way too, because it can be sometimes feel immature, or there's some of the struggles that you have at that age can be harder to put yourself in the headspace of as you get older and farther away from that time in your own life, I feel like. But there is, there's just so many like college decisions and social dynamics, and there is a lot of fun stuff to play around with at that age as well. And so I felt like that book sort of gave me an opportunity to revert to my younger self and to, just get into that. It's a very, fraught time in so many ways, but also exciting. You're, sort of starting to grow up for the first time and be independent and look ahead toward college, which is an exciting chapter. And so I think there are some clear different dynamics that you can do with young adult. And then I switched back to new adult and have written several new adult books since then as well too. And there are different things that you can do in new adult that you can't do in young adult as well too, So again, I think it just depends on the story that I'm trying to tell. Some work better in high school age characters, some work better with college age characters. And so I have jumped around between the two. I probably will continue to. And I don't necessarily decide that it's going to be young adult or new adult going into it. I think, again, I have to sort of develop the story and the characters and then decide which fits better. Or even, I've also done some adult novels as well. So I have the three different categories that I've sort of jumped between, because there's just different ways to play around with each one and things that you can do in one that you can't do in the other.
Yeah, and I have to say, too, one of the reasons I don't gravitate towards YA isn't necessarily because of the immaturity, but also what tends to happen in my experience is everything takes place in like 2 weeks, and there's these big monumental decisions that happen, and it's these teenagers making these decisions, and they just don't make sense. Like, this isn't something that you would act so mature about in real life, and that you don't do that. The pacing of the book, the decisions that the characters are making, the way they are acting in YA and also in the new adult makes so much sense to me. It made so much sense. I'm like, yes, that's exactly how that would happen. I read First Light Final Fall, and in that one in particular, there's quite a bit of space in between them seeing each other because of the different schedules. And I'm like, that makes sense. You know what I mean? That's something that makes sense to me. And so I really appreciate. I think that's why I liked Kiss Now Lie Later so much, because I'm like, she actually paces it. It's not just a 2 week romance and now they're in love and they're each other's soulmates. So I just have to tell you that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that can be one of the big challenges of YA, is that freshman year you're 14 and then senior year you're 18. Like those, it's a 4-year span, which does not seem like a very long stretch of time, but I would argue that's like maybe the most transformative 4 years of your life.
And it feels like infinity when you're at that age.
It does. Yes. And so, yeah, it can be really tough, particularly if you're setting a book. That's why I only did the one chapter with freshman year. If you're setting a book, I think in the earlier years of high school, that can be really challenging, because it can feel like it's natural for those characters to be more immature and to making all these impulsive decisions that can be frustrating as a reader to relate to, or to sort of draw a connection to the character as well. So,
Yeah, I'm about to raise a teenager, a high schooler. So I'm like about to enter in. And sometimes when I read these books and I put him in as like a male character, I'm like, he would never, ever handle this situation well at all. Like we got to be a little bit more realistic. So,
right. Which can be fun though, too. Like as a writer, like you can get away with some things with younger characters that you just can't with older characters. Right. And so that can be, you can, kind of sneak some things in that would not be realistic for a older man or adult man to do, but a teenage boy, you're like, yes, you would absolutely do that.
Exactly. And it makes it fun.
Yeah, it did. It was a lot of fun. Even when I was like wanting to cuss out her dad and punch Wes, I was like still having a great time.
Yeah, truly. Let's talk about some tropes. So obviously you are excellent rivals to lovers. We saw that multiple times. You have sports romances. And like in a different like bent way, we kind of have like brothers X or friends X, because it's like Natalie, is like sisters boyfriend's ex. So that's all there. What are some tropes that you haven't written yet, but you really, really want to? Or your favorite trope to write?
My favorite trope to write is probably enemies to lovers. No surprise there. I have written a couple friends to lovers, and I do have a strong fondness for that trope, but there's just there's so much angst with them originally hating or disliking each other and making it just feels like there's so much more space in that arc of if they're already friends, then there's a basis and a familiarity there that I love, like writing their first meeting and sort of that initial impression of each other and how that changes and evolves throughout the book is just so fun to play around with. And so I think that will always be one of the big tropes that I'm drawn to. Just wrote my first road trip romance, and that was a lot of fun. I'd love to do that again. I love accidental pregnancy. I know that's it can be a controversial trope that people either love or hate, but I personally love that one and will definitely write one at some point. I would love to do a coach athlete romance, which I have not done.
Oh, yes, please. Circa
Again, I think
Bridget. Yeah, from
yeah,
Sisterhood.
forbidden secret relationship, which there's some of in Kiss Now Lie Later, is again just so much fun of like that. You're constantly on the edge of your seat. Like, when is it, their relationship is going to come out at some point and have repercussions. And so you're just waiting and waiting for that to happen is always fun. Yeah, those are the ones. Of course, now I'm like on the spot. Normally I can like spout several on the spot now, and none others are immediately coming to mind. But yeah, those are some favorites that I've either played around with a lot or plan to at some point.
If you want us to alpha read your coach
The coach ship.
one, just let us know. I just gifted her a book that is a professor student and oh, I love it. So this is your first traditionally published book, correct? Kiss Now Lie Later.
It is, yeah. Entangled bought the print rights to 4 of my backlist titles. So yeah, they're doing Kiss Now Lie Later is out. First Flight Final Fall is about to come out. For Now Not Forever, which is Liam and Natalie's book, will be out in August. And then the second book connected to First Flight Final Fall, All Around Plays, will be out in October. So those books
Has
are
it
all
been an easy process? Like, have you enjoyed the traditionally published way? Do you prefer the self-published? Like, how are you feeling?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I started publishing back in 2020 as a hobby entirely. I just had an idea for a book, sat down and wrote it, and had no idea what to do with it, basically, because I didn't know anyone who was an author. I didn't know what that process looks like or how to publish a book or any of that. And then sort of literally stumbled into the self-publishing space as just a way, again, a hobby. I'd written this book and wanted to do something with it. And so, yeah, at that time in my life, it was working full time. This wasn't really a career or necessarily anything that I thought would turn into a career. And so that it turning in that trajectory was really caught me off guard, to be honest, and is something I'm so grateful for. It has been lovely and fabulous in different ways. And so, yeah, I connected with my agent shortly before I switched to writing full time. And so she and I had a lot of conversations about where I wanted to take my career and sort of the pros cons of sticking with indie and going fully trad. And yeah, this Entangled opportunity came up and was really the ideal in my mind. It's very difficult to get into bookstores as an indie author. There are a lot of fabulous bookstores, particularly independent ones, who have been great about carrying and stocking some of my self-published titles, but it's a different distribution network, and it's hard to do it on any sort of large scale, really, is the bottom line of it. So yeah, I was so thrilled that Entangled was interested, and I've retained my audio and ebook rights. So I'm still have full control over that piece of it, which is fabulous. I can keep my books in Kindle Unlimited and everything. And then yeah, they're re-releasing these 4 titles, and they'll be, I can walk into Target and see my book on the shelves, which is so exciting and surreal. So yeah, I feel like every author has a slightly different journey and way of going about this. It's not really a career that has any sort of blueprint, which can be scary at times, of not knowing the right decision to make or not necessarily knowing what journey to take. But I've been yeah, so fortunate in the way that my career has gone, and it's so exciting, dream come true, pinch me moment to walk into Barnes and Noble and see my book on the table there is kind of never gets old. It's just surreal in some ways to like know this thing that I wrote, and I wrote Kiss Now Lie Later. When I was in remote law school at the time, it was like COVID was going on. We were in a global pandemic. I was like, I just want to sit down and live in like this happy kind of fun world for a little bit. And yeah, never thought that a single person would ever read it necessarily. And now I can go see it sitting on shelves is, yeah, It's really surreal. So
It was we had set our interview, and then pub date came, and it was so cool to just see Kiss Now Lie Later and get
Yep.
to see the sprayed edges and
We
just get to
screamed.
fangirl. Yeah,
Yeah, we
because
screamed in here. We scared the owner. Her
she
name is
was like,
also Liz. So we scared
that's
Liz
awesome.
because we were like, oh my God, here she is. Yeah, it
yeah,
was cute.
it
And
was
now she sold out. We couldn't even display it.
yeah.
So
I didn't bring
That's
as I was
awesome.
like, well, and it looks so cute on my shelf too. The
same.
pink, it's so good.
I know I have like 10 copies of it, and so I have them displayed like spine, sprayed edges, spine, sprayed edges, like
That's
so I can see both sides of it.
incredible. Incredible. I can't wait for Now Not Forever to come out traditionally, for the pair of them to be on my shelf, because Natalie is my girl. Natalie is my queen.
I love hearing that. She got a lot of some deserved hate, some not, in my opinion. But I personally love a complicated female character and a
Yeah,
redemption arc. And
She really reminded me of Brooke Davis from One Tree Hill. I don't know if you're a One Tree Hill
of course,
person,
yes,
but
there are people. Taylor, One
other
Tree
people
Hill.
don't love one.
if they exist, I don't want to know. Yeah, she really, I kept being reminded of Brooke Davis over and over. We're like, yeah, there are some choices there, but these choices are because not only one of her parents, but both of her parents are going absolutely through it and
Mhm.
are kind of shitty. And like people have just been labeling her with all these labels that us as women have to be labeled with all the time, and she just wasn't able to like have a safe place to be herself. I could cry. I literally loved her so much. I just felt like I saw her and Liam saw her. And I've been looking at fan art of Liam because I love him. So they're the best.
I'm so glad. I love hearing that. Yeah. Going back to, yeah, I felt like everyone wanted the Maven West college story and I understood why, but it was honestly Natalie more so than Liam that I felt like she deserved her own story and sort of more explanation for her behavior in the first book. So
She
I'm
did.
so glad that
And
resonated with
may
you.
I say that book is hot as hell. As additionally, I was texting Liz. I said, "Oh my god, I'm at 30 something percent. I forget where I was. It was like the out of town of it all, and I was like,
Okay.
this is really good. I can't wait for you to read it."
And I jumped immediately to first fight Final Fall because I was like, I gotta know. And so I'm like, well, to show you this, it was, oh, yeah. All of them are great. I can't wait to read Liam and Natalie. I'm so excited.
I'm gonna suggest it for our romance book club.
We should.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's gonna be great. Do you have any favorite authors or like people's books you just can't get enough of, or like favorite books you want to share?
This is such a hard question to answer because there are so many, and I always feel like I'm going to forget something on the spot. I think the ones coming to mind first, I love Kay Tucker's books. The Simple Wild is a forever favorite of mine that I've reread. I love Ginger Scott's books. She writes some fantastic sports romance, YA, and college. I love Liz Tumforty's books. She's one of my favorites as
That's on
well.
our TBR. We have not read
We haven't read the
Caught
Windy
Up or any of them. The wind. What is it? Windy City.
Windy City is her series. Yeah.
Yeah,
We have, in our virtual book club, there's many who are like, many girls who are like, you have to read that. So that's on our TBR too.
it is so many people's Roman empires that I'm kind of scared to read them.
I know.
Don't worry, they'll live up to the hype.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Elizabeth O'Rourke, I love her books as well. Tara DeWitt, I'm reading her Left of Forever that comes out in May. I'm reading that one right now. Yeah, I could go on and on. There's so many. Stephanie Archer, I love her hockey series. Yeah, too many good books and not enough time is my ongoing mantra. It's just, yeah, it's so
If I could
hard.
get,
I'm coming off of a huge historical romance kick. That's like every winter, I just want like to curl up under a blanket, like by the fire. And historical romance always scratched that itch for me of like Tessa Dare and Lisa Kleypas. I don't know if I'm saying her last name correctly, but I've read most, if not all, of their backlists. So I go on. Sometimes it's nice, like I love reading contemporary and sports romance, but also sometimes it's just really nice to read something totally different from what you're writing or working on. And so I think that's another reason I gravitate toward historical romance sometimes.
It's so cozy. I like it
It
a
is.
lot.
the other Boleyn Girl is one of my like comfort reads of all time, like top 10 comfort reads. I don't know if that's really a romance.
It does not have a happy ending.
There's a romance in it.
Yes.
A little bit of everything,
Oh
truly.
my gosh.
So, what's next? What is your next big thing you are working on?
Yeah, so I have First Flight Final Fall is coming out end of April. And then my next new release is going to be in June. June 26th is Antiheroes release.
Is it in relation to the song? The
Well,
vibes?
I think there are some anti-hero vibes in it for sure. So this is part of my Kensington series. So the first book in that series was Fake Empire and then Real Regrets. And then I switched to second gen. So I'm doing the first two books follow two billionaire brothers. And then the second generation follows their five kids. So the first book, False God, came out last October. And then now I'm on the second gen, which is coming out this June. So I haven't released any details about the tropes or the synopsis for that, but that'll be forthcoming soon. And then the second half of the year are the two For Now Not Forever and All the Wrong Plays are getting re-released. And I do have some stuff lined up for 2026, but I can't announce any of that yet.
I'm so excited for you. That's so amazing.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a busy year. It has been a busy year, but it's not going to quiet down.
I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly, right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, organized chaos, right?
We all are in need of distraction.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a great time to be a romance reader and
Exactly.
have a guaranteed happy ending.
Truly. We have told our listeners multiple times, but we're just going to say it again. If you guys have not picked up any of Charlotte's books, please do yourself a favor and get into this town, this rivalry, this juicy, delicious sports romance. Oh, literally so good. If you're not an e-reader, guess what? You can go to the store and get Kiss Now Lie Later, which is so iconic.
And you know me, and you know that I do not do YA very well. So if I'm sitting here saying you have to do it, you know you have to do it. So I'm just saying.
It's a high recommendation.
Truly, you don't understand how high of a that is coming from Liz. I will eat up YA because I can say I was 15 once. I look back at my decisions. I'm like, and so I can, but Liz has a time.
I do. But if I'm in the right mindset or I find the right book, I'm okay.
And she was obsessed. She was like, oh, Kiss Now Later? 5 stars. Yeah.
Done.
Perfect.
The minute it was like soccer, I said, sold. Here we go. And then, like I said before, there's a difference when you can tell someone knows what they're writing about versus not. And so I loved it. And I loved your writing style too. I do see everything as a movie. So this literally played as like a reality, not a real, what are like a show.
It was definitely giving One Tree Hill.
Yeah.
And I know she's a hot topic right now, but Maeve was reminding me of Blake Lively in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Yes.
Just like the vibe.
Yeah.
And also Amanda Bynes and She's the Man. I kept seeing that in my life too.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing. Yeah.
I'll choose that. It was great.
Well, thank you so much. Again, I'm so flattered.
And I can't wait for everybody else to read First Light Final Fall. That's so exciting for that to come out and to read Liam and Natalie, and just you've created a really great universe and a really great sports romance. You should be so proud because I love it. I love it so much.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm trying to, again, as a sports romance reader, I didn't feel like I found a ton of books with female athletes in them. So I'm trying to change that.
Yeah, there is a lot. There's a surplus of men playing hockey. And I love that. I did read Pucking Around more than once, so I understand. However, it was so great to see not only a soccer, rec, but some female athlete rep. It was amazing. So,
and soccer and football is fun too. Like them being the same season and knowing they each kind of had their own thing. Mm-hmm. That was really nice too. And also, I just have to tell you too that I did, as much as I wanted to punch the parents, having those complicated relationships during a time in high school, you wrote that really well too. Mm-hmm. Where like maybe things would have been a little different had they been a little older. Maybe more conversation would have happened. But the way that you wrote them, that's exactly how I felt like those relationships would have progressed. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Again, that's a big compliment. Yeah, I felt like, again, high school is that's like sort of the stage where your parents are start feeling like less your parent, like you're gaining your own independence, and that role really shifts of like them being in charge of driving you, or even just like, you can drive, like you're slowly gaining more independence and freedom from your parents while still living in their house, and a lot of other things remaining the same. And so, yeah, there's a lot you can play around with those different dynamics and how they change and evolve during that time.
And
Yeah.
even siblings like Liam and Maeve, like you wrote it just
Yeah.
chef's kiss.
Yeah. You have huge fans over here, in case you can't tell. And all of our friends now too, whether it was by bully or,
You
not.
say bully, I say aggressively recommend.
Yeah, great. But now we don't have to.
No.
So it was great. Thank you so much for being here. Would you like to tell the people where they can find you online?
Yeah, of course. So my website is authorcwfarnsworth.com, and that has links to all my social media profiles from there. So that's like the easiest central place. You can subscribe to my newsletter and everything, but I'm at author CW Farnsworth on Instagram and TikTok as well. So you can search me on there.
Yay. Perfect.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so much for coming. If you guys are not following us on social media, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Liz and Liz Get Literary. If you guys have anything to say or a good sports romance to talk about, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Charlotte. It was such an honor to talk to you. And we'll see you guys later.
Bye.